Quick roll call.
Okay. This is the Natural Resources meeting for August 13th, 2014. My name's Pete Walter, staff liaison. And I'm going to call the roll for the NRC members. Douglas DeHart.
Here.
Brian Boyce.
Here.
Jerry Herman.
Here.
Richard Craven.
Here.
Ginger Redlinger.
Here.
All 5 of our members are here.
Okay. And we're going to go on to old business and start with the NRC activity planning.
We don't have any public comments.
Yeah, there's no public comment. No public.
And what happened to our minutes exactly? What was the,
We have a transcriptionist that normally gets them to us before the meeting, and she didn't get them to us today for this meeting. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
Other than that, I think our meeting minutes should be up to date on the city website and posted.
okay.
So we're discussing the work plan, is that true, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, it is.
All right, and I see 2 different versions of the work plan.
Okay, so, yeah, Richard did his revisions on the 15th of July, and those are one of the copies in front of you with the capital letters in red. And then the other version is Doug's work with the little comment bars on the side.
Oh, I see.
So perhaps one way that we could do this is just go through these line by line, comparing each of the 2 documents, and then
Sure.
work that way. And I'll take notes, and Ginger, you're going to take notes too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So the format of the sheet has slimmed down a lot, and I like the way it's set up. You've got your Natural Resource Committee bylaws responsibility on the left column, and how it relates to a specific city goal, also in that column. Next column is the activity column, which is organized A, B, C, D, E. Then you have an NRC lead position, and then a timeline. And so I think we need to just kind of go through these. The first item being Natural Resources NRC Responsibility 1, which is promote community involvement in natural resources conservation, which is aligned with the City Commission Goal 4, citizen participation.
Okay.
First item is Activity 1A, to conduct the Natural Resources Tour, which is an annual event. And Jerry would be the lead on this, I believe.
Yes, I'd still like to do that.
Yeah.
I believe you were talking about October rather than September.
Yeah, and the reason for that is I'm really committed to a bunch of stuff, including something that most of you have in front of you. Give one of these to Pete, which is a very complex tour of the Portland Spirit coming on October 14th, and other associated bus parts to go with that, and that's got my attention. So I can't do anything between now and then, but I do believe the fall foliage aspect of the whole thing would work well. And I know last year we had about 32 people on the bus. The bus was a 44-passenger. Pete, you talked about a smaller bus. I believe we could fill up a bus if it has a strong thematic component.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
going to suggest that we focus this NRC tour around the legacy of Tom McCall. And the reason I say that is there's people in this community and across the river that work for Tom McCall that could be presenters. And the mayor of the city is strongly interested in the Tom McCall legacy and the things that he did, of which a lot of them were in Oregon City, related to that mill that we're all talking about, the Blue Heron, formerly Publisher Paper Mill. But I can't do it until the 28th of October. I'm sorry, I can't do it until 18th of October, which is a Saturday. And that would still give us time to lead time to promote it. It's going to take a cycle or 2 in the newsletter or a good news release. You and I got a news release out last year, and we did pick up some people from that, Pete. But I think with a thematic approach, somebody put in on one of these drafts here, make sure that we're going to natural areas and areas of concern. I totally agree with that. Brian and I worked out the agenda for last year, and I think the places we went to were pretty interesting, but we could certainly be more focused. But I think a theme, Tom McCall was the greatest environmentalist the state ever had, I believe. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's an understatement. And nobody knows the legacy of what he did because of the people he had with him. And I think it'd be interesting to hear about people like Hector McPherson, who was a farmer, grass seed farmer from down in Albany, that of all things founded LCDC as a state senator, and other people like that had a role in his government that were both Democrats and Republicans and independents. A new idea back then that is not being repeated today, and make that the theme. The greatest environmental legacy ever revisited, and look at some sites. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay,
I'll
that
get
sounds
honest
good.
with you.
So anybody have any more commentary on that item?
I think there's an important component as part of the Tom McCall idea there, Jerry, the land use component, of course. And I
Yeah,
could
that-
probably argue I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him.
That's a good angle to bring out.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody on city staff
Yeah,
could
I
get
could talk
behind
to that.
maybe giving us a short
Yeah.
update on that. That might be really good.
Land use planning in the state.
Yeah.
The city of Oregon, state of land use
Yeah,
planning.
a lot of
at the local level.
a lot of
Yeah.
what the city does is because of McCall's.
Right. Yeah, it'd be neat to have your perspective as a planner on we didn't have an awful lot of time from you last time because of the
Okay.
itinerary, but we
Yeah.
would benefit from that, I think.
That'd be great. I'd love,
If you're
love
up
to
to
do
it.
that. Yeah, I would love to do that. If it's on the 18th.
Yeah.
On the 25th, that's my birthday.
There's a little story I'll end with this about LB Day walking the passageways that you're all talking about at the Blue Heron plant. He used to tromple through there. They could hear him coming with the cleats on his feet. LB Day was the first director of the Environmental Quality Commission, director of DEQ. First it was McCall, and then he finally turned it over to the toughest guy he could find, a union boss who scared the heck out of everybody. And people knew when he was around down in Salem because they'd hear him coming with his cleats, and they knew that they had to be careful. Well, a good friend of mine worked for LB Day, and he's over in West Lynn, John Borden. Richard and I both know him, and telling the stories of personal accounts of LB Day cleaning up that mill, the Blue Heron Mill, prior called Publisher's Paper, the stuff that they had to do there is an amazing story. So anyway,
Right.
okay,
Okay.
that's enough of that.
I think we can talk a little bit more about the specifics on the next item.
I think I could bring you an outline
Yeah.
at the next meeting.
Okay, good. Okay, any more commentary on 1A?
Well, maybe we should maybe we have this other column over here on the right for notes.
Yeah.
Maybe we should put what Jerry just said there, outlined by September meeting or something like that.
Sure, absolutely. I'll present an outline to you. Brian and I will look at it together.
Yeah, that'd be about the last chance.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
And just one last thing. I know you were concerned. You talked about a smaller bus. The price between a small bus and a big bus is not huge.
No, it wasn't so much that we couldn't fill it. It was more maneuverability.
Oh,
issue.
you're right.
Yeah.
We got to
yeah.
make sure we don't get trapped at
Right.
Donovan Road, right?
In the promontory and a few
That was
other
a little
places.
That was a little tricky. Maybe we
But
just don't. Go to the
she did
promenade.
manage it. It was
Yeah.
and it was a
Right.
Saturday, so it was fairly
Okay.
quiet. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if they could do it with two smaller buses, potentially it might be a little
Yep.
easier. Yeah.
Just breaks up the information flow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, let's go on to 1B, and that's prepare educational materials for distribution to the public.
What education materials are we talking about?
Well, I guess that's the catch. That was both Richard's
That's-
comment and mine. Was we need, I think, to define something here.
Oh,
Yeah, and there's lots of potential, but we just haven't defined it yet.
Yeah, we have to pick
It's-
the one
it's
we're going to
something-
work on this next year.
okay.
Yeah. And,
Well, yeah.
yeah, there's
And the format.
The format, yeah, designing it as separate from the content, of course, and
Is there
but-
something specific that somebody's
well,
thinking about?
an idea.
or-
No, there's not a specific project in mind, but it's the idea that we ought to be involved in this is why it's here. It could be something like a brochure on street trees, for instance, or invasive plants. You know, those are just ideas, but those would be examples.
Well, I think the street tree one's a good one, since we've got this, the other water quality brochure is a separate task for this year. So the idea of focusing this educational material on street trees sounds fine to me.
Yeah.
That would be good. And you've got the beginnings of that with the work that Kelly Moosberger did on the draft of that, which
Oh,
needs to
I
be
didn't know
finalized.
I didn't know she did
She
that.
did. She put some time into that, and we had not yet adopted the street tree list at that time. So I have a sort of a rough, well, a fairly good working draft, but it's not as something like Lake Oswego has. So we could take a look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Looking at
yeah.
examples is always good.
Yeah.
So.
If that's something we want to put in there for a note in 1B,
Yeah,
great.
This is all public education or spreading the word,
yeah,
this whole section here.
yeah. On environmentally
You know,
oriented
I just, you know,
ideas.
I watched the tours that you lead, and
Mhm.
I suspect that Doug is very capable of doing walking tours. I would like to see us do a once a month or bi-monthly walk to look at wildlife or whatever. And the Clackamas Cove would be a great place to start. Another one would be the Willamette View Terrace, which overlooks Sportcraft.
Yeah,
And I mean, the kind of stuff you do, and I do too, and I'll bet there's several of us that could do that. It'd be neat to have the NRC do a public first Saturday or something like that, or last Saturday event, that the people join us and look at stuff. I don't know.
yeah. You could also do it in combination with some of the festivals that happen in the city,
Yeah,
because that would bring a ready crowd.
those are mostly summer, but you're right.
Yeah, well,
We could
that's
plan for
also the
next
best
summer.
time to
Right.
do that sort of thing.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Or
so
are
that's
you
another
talking
idea.
about 1E?
I'm talking about you'd have support materials to hand out that might relate to, say, my favorite subject, as you know, Richard, beavers. And we got all this great stuff that you looked up, Doug. And it'd be interesting to do a little walk of the cove and talk about the beaver issue.
Oh, you're talking about 1B?
Yeah.
Education material, okay.
Yeah, and because the materials already exist, and then a little bit about their habitat, where they build, the difference between building along the river versus whitewater lodges that they do. I don't know. As an example, I don't know.
I think I heard you saying that maybe a little tour once a month or something?
Yeah,
Is that 1B? Is that what you're talking about
that's
here?
kind of what I'm talking about. And your support
Let's
materials.
not get ahead of ourselves, though. I mean,
Yeah.
1B is to prepare the educational materials on a particular topic
Right.
here. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how we define that one.
Right.
If we're entertaining something else here,
Okay, I see
a
what you're
series of periodic public
right,
tours,
all
I'm not arguing against it, but I
Right.
think it's another task.
Right. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it is a separate task.
but it could be where some support materials, including
It could be
ones-
coordinated
Well, sure.
with something like that.
Sure, but it's a separate project,
I got you.
completely separate
All right.
project.
We
Just
might
to-
be able to modify 1E to include it, just by changing the language in 1E.
1E.
Yeah, schedule tours and invite,
Yeah,
utilize the
that- it would
school
fit in there
as
pretty
a
well.
way
Yeah.
to advertise the tours,
Yeah, and it would be kind of neat to do it
to
with the
create
Greater
natural
Oregon City
resource
Watershed.
education activities,
Whatever.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. 1E.
So, well, under 1A, you've got one tour going already in the fall.
Right.
You're going to do two if you add another one.
Will this be for next summer, so we can put that in for?
Well, I think that would be good. I'm a little hesitant to commit to monthly ones. I'm
Yeah.
not sure we got the
Quarter-
horsepower to do
quarterly-
it.
Quarterly.
But the idea of a tour or tours in, integrated with this partnership with schools thing sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
is it
think
a
it's
separate entry, 1F?
No.
Under
Or just,
1E.
We're
just
gonna revise it.
identify it as part of 1E.
Oh. 1E or 1A?
1E.
1E.
1 Echo, okay,
Yeah.
fine, good.
Create
Okay.
tours to educate
All right.
Yeah,
public
that's-
about.
That's something to
orienting natural
develop over
resources
time, just
in
like anything
partnership
else.
with, kind of thing. So I'll just modify that language to focus on the tours as the vehicle.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to take on too many projects
Right.
right away here. And,
Okay,
and-
all right. Well,
No, and I think that's right. You'd be shooting for perhaps next spring to early
yeah,
summer.
Okay, that's
Spring to
that's-
summer?
As a
Yes.
timeline, something
Well,
like
spring
that.
and-
Brian does tours every other week, so that's,
Well, I
I figure
don't-
he's got time left over.
2015.
I don't do it that often. I do it once a month.
Well, you do them very well.
Yeah.
Spring and summer 2015. Oh, spring to summer.
Spring, okay.
Okay. So back to 1B, we've got taken care of for the time being with street tree brochure.
Yeah.
1C.
We need a timeline for that for this.
Yeah, we should probably think about that. Timeline. It would be good to get that out and published. I'll help on that because it's already. I'll put my name down for that one
Good.
because it's already mostly there. I just need you guys to chime in and give me your thoughts on what it ought to look like
Mhm.
and what the verbiage ought to be.
So your name's going in, which one? 1B?
1B.
1B.
Okay, Pete, okay.
And I think we can easily shoot for I'm going to say end of November 2014.
Really?
If there's already a good draft, then that's possible.
Well, yeah,
Quite
we would need to
easily.
review this at our next meeting, potentially.
And
Yep.
get the draft out to us between now and then, and
Yeah.
I'd be glad to look at it.
Okay.
And there's lots of examples online if people want to look up examples of, street tree oriented material. They just start looking for street trees and name a city, a big city, and you're going to get one
Found
or
some
more.
good educational materials from the International Society of Arboriculture too.
Yeah.
For I found one on why you shouldn't top trees, for example. Good 2-page, easy to understand and read. So there's a lot of offshoots and links you can use.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're going to have to decide how big this brochure is going to be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
could fill one up real fast.
Yeah.
And the list itself is quite large and may need to be separate.
Yeah. I'm thinking, it would be web-based, and then have a downloadable brochure.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good point. This one
Yeah.
says materials, so yeah, it could be a couple of different formats, couldn't it?
Yeah, well, the list, which is already done, is going to be separate from the brochure. The two would often go out together, though.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that should be good. Okay.
Maybe this is a detail, but
Mhm.
On the street tree brochure, what would exactly be the intent of it, and who would it go to?
It would go to anyone who might be thinking of planting street trees, whether they're commercial or residential or what, and it would be to encourage people to do that and help them make the right choices because people don't necessarily pick the right tree.
Yeah, I mean, we could get an estimate on printing costs if we were thinking of including this in a widespread mailing with a utility bill, for example.
Yeah.
Or with the trail news potentially, since we have a postal permit, but we need to. It's usually it's pretty expensive to do a large 8.5 by 11 mailing of something like that.
Yeah.
So
We could
yeah.
put it in the
Definitely.
existing newsletter, maybe in more than one part,
Right.
over,
yeah.
over
So I
a
would
couple of
say-
issues.
We approach local arborists to put their names on the brochure to
Yeah.
pay for the cost of printing.
That's worth trying.
It's a good idea.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I will check.
Because taking care of the existing trees might be another subject matter that needs to be approached.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Okay. Okay. All right. Good deal. So, thanks. 1C.
Okay. Collaborate with Greater Oregon City Watershed Council and
In the Public
was-
Works, yeah.
yeah, and then Public Works is a separate one.
So it looks like there's two different ideas at work here. I mean,
Yeah, there is. That's why the 2D got added in.
yes, though I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, if I understood what 1C was about to start with, and I thought I did, so tell me if I no longer understand. What we were going to do here is work with both the Watershed Council as the other volunteer group around here with expertise in small streams, and with the Public Works Department to create a brochure on urban stream quality.
That kind of
I mean, and that's as I understood it, that's basically one task. We were just trying to bring
Partners.
3 different groups or representatives of 3 different groups to the same table to try to do it.
I agree.
I mean, that was what I understood.
All right.
The drains that go to the streams are marked, clean streams or whatever those are. That's a similar type of partnership. And the water quality division within Public Works, they do produce water quality, laboratory testing type brochures, right, to tell everybody what they tested every year. And that would be the first point of contact to start developing something like this. Yeah.
And there's a lot of best practices that we're all aware of already, and many of them are enshrined in local or state law. Things like how you use herbicides and pesticides in your streams, what's okay and what's not, and dumping lawn clippings in streams and other stuff like that practices to be avoided. I mean, you put together a pretty good list of do's and don'ts, I think, fairly simply.
Right.
I think the contact, Doug, is Gail Johnson in Public Works.
Uh-huh.
So we'll need to collaborate with her on that.
Does something like that already exist?
I don't know.
It seems like-
I believe South Fork Water Board has some conservation brochures as the raw water provider to the city, but I'm not sure.
Certainly some other jurisdictions have
Right.
done this
Sure.
kind of thing, and you quickly pull together some of those and, rob from them with abandon to
Yeah.
get some good ideas.
Definitely. Stick our logo on it.
But anyway, this was one I was offering to stick my hat in the ring and coordinate if people wanted me to.
Good.
Great. Timeline.
Maybe with a timeline a little longer than the street trees one, with the idea, I think, that it happens over the winter with completion next spring, something like that. I don't know.
What, March, April?
March, April time frame.
Good idea. That would be excellent.
Okay. And these can all be adjusted as
Yeah.
need be.
Does the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council want to collaborate with us?
Well, those of us who are involved with them think they want to. Yes.
Oh.
No, seriously.
You're both
yeah.
involved. Okay.
Yeah. There's interest there.
Okay.
Haven't talked to them yet about who who wants to be a lead from
Sure.
the Watershed Council, but there's interest.
Good. All right.
Okay, good.
So who's our liaison to them? Both of you? You and
Well, I'm willing to be a kind of coordinator
Well,
to
you're-
pull the pieces together.
Aren't you in that organization?
Well, I'm a technical advisor to them.
and so are
Okay.
you, Richard, aren't you?
Well, he's actually a member of the
Okay.
board of the council.
Okay. So as far as NRC leads, is it both of you?
No. Let Doug can take the lead on that, and I will criticize.
Well, I was going to say that doesn't mean Richard won't be involved.
Critique.
Critique.
Well, that's very
Help them see it from another perspective.
I just want to criticize.
I'll just worry about the logistics of being sure to have.
Oh, okay.
No critiques.
Yeah, no, there's no critique.
No, that's fine, Doug.
Okay, good.
Okay, any more comment on 1C? Okay, let's go on to
Well,
1C and 1.
before you get past
2D.
that, let me ask kind of a similar question again. What is this going to be used for exactly? I mean, how do you use it? It seems like we need to have. I can see where we would come up with a brochure and then figure out what to do with it, but
Right.
it'd be nice if we knew what we were going to do with it before
Right.
we
I
came
agree.
up with
I
it,
agree with
because
what
it
you
may
said.
affect how,
Yeah.
the type of brochure
it-
we're looking at.
Right.
Who's it
Has a
directed
lot to do.
towards?
Is it something
Yeah.
you've mailed out in the bi-monthly water bills that you do?
Perhaps.
Could be, because, I mean, it wouldn't be a big thing.
Yeah,
It'd
we're-
probably be a, a trifold brochure or something, so,
Well, we're
Fold
we're
double,
at
put it in-
very beginning stages right now. We don't have everything nailed down exactly how it's going to be done,
But
or
he's
Well,
got,
yeah.
why even.
he's got a good
But-
point, though. How do you distribute this thing?
Well,
I
we
think
have made a couple of suggestions.
As we're working through this and we're creating information, we might be able to host it on the Oregon City. We might have our own website attached to the city's website
Yeah.
where we have information to distribute, and the public can have access to it.
And then, and if we do end up, doing a mailing, we can do targeted mailings within 300 feet of streams, or we can do citywide or whatever. Just that's something that we can do in the future. Since anybody potentially wanting to do development next to or near a stream, whether it's adding on a house addition or landscaping the backyard, would potentially benefit from knowing where they're at in relation to the stream and
Neighborhood
and
associations
the
and the
neighborhood
children
associations.
knowing the playing in the streams, how would be good. I mean, there are all sorts of ways we can
Yeah, there's
use that
the
information.
neighborhood associations are one way. The monthly mailing the city already does is another. A special mailing would be another. Those are all possibilities at this point.
And
We don't
all
know.
of the partners here could have their own distribution
Right.
plans. I mean, the Watershed Council may choose to distribute this brochure through an event or,
Yeah, and-
And then science teachers and the
events
school
they
districts.
do.
Yeah. If we can get it into the schools, great. And there's the websites as well. So there's a lot of ways for it to get out, and we just have to nail down as we proceed
Okay.
how those are going to be. We can't answer it tonight.
Okay. All right.
But I think one thing we can answer is, I mean, it's geared to the general public.
Yes.
I mean, it's supposed to be a fairly quick, easy to understand kind of gateway to the things you think about and who you might contact on urban stream issues.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, and
This would be good for the neighborhood associations.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
a very good thing for the neighborhood associations, I
We
would
could
think.
present to
And,
the
anybody that
CIC, yeah.
anybody that owns property has potential of making use of this. It could be as simple as getting in. This is something we haven't brought up yet, but disconnecting downspouts so that there's less water
Runoff,
flushing
right,
straight into
right.
the streams. That's just. But that anybody can do that owns a piece of property. So. But that's been pushed in some of the other cities around this area, like Portland is one,
And that would
Lake Oswego, I think, and
that would dovetail with the stormwater master plan update that Public Works is embarking on.
and encouraging disconnecting downspouts would help them.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, it kind of depends on the situation, though.
Oh, sure.
I
Definitely
think you want to
does.
encourage doing that. I think you want
If,
to let it be a
If it-
possibility.
you're right,
you know.
if it works.
yeah,
Yeah, there's heavy dense soils. It doesn't work as well
right.
as looser soils. For instance. So but we have to approach all that as time goes on. We can't. We're not here to
Right.
discuss the details here.
Yeah, you're right. Good.
Okay.
Okay, so this is sort of like I think what I'm understanding is there's Oregon City Watershed Council and Public Works would all be involved in this one project in some way or another.
That's what I'm understanding, that
Okay.
each would be invited to designate a lead person or individuals that would be involved in a little team that would plan this thing and then start pulling together materials.
Yeah.
Yeah, you also have potential partner in the Soil and Water Conservation District.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another group.
Well, yeah, and I guess there's, if they want to be actively involved, there's no reason not to.
They probably would.
You can certainly ask them if they want to designate somebody too.
Who would ask them?
I would.
Okay, good.
Or
How
you
about,
can, it doesn't matter.
Whatever you
Clackamas
wanna do.
Community
Yeah,
College.
I know the people, so.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, it's a good idea too.
Clackamas, yeah.
Yeah, tell them if
Which-
they
which-
want to have a person sit on a planning and drafting team, that we'd like to have them.
Yeah,
Which department are you thinking?
that's going to be,
I'm not
Just
thinking of
leave it
anything
open for
specific.
them, you know.
I don't- I'm not
but they
sure
would
what-
be interested.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Do you have an idea on what department? or-
Yeah, the Environmental Learning Center.
ELC?
Yeah, the ELC. I'm
Um,
going to partner with that because they also do the same mission of outreach and community
yeah.
information. So
You also have the wing of Clackamas County Water Environmental Services as a good collaborator there. So Gail Shalom is the contact over there that would be very
Okay.
into this.
That's Clackamas County?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right next to you in that office there, isn't it?
No, those guys are actually, the administrative office, I believe, is over at 150 Beaver Creek Road in the
Okay.
in the county building. So, and then they have the plant down there at Tri Cities. So, yeah. So, but they would definitely be interested in collaborating.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to
1D.
1D, which is participate in natural resource focused events like Arbor Day.
Now, isn't that supposed to be much more specific than that? I mean, right now, isn't that supposed to say in, well, it's supposed to, I don't know what the right words are, but in association with Arbor Day or something? I mean, we specifically are talking about Arbor Day in this task, right? Not,
I
not
think
like Arbor Day.
I think starting our first year with one of these things, of the possible things, you know, there's Earth Day, there's this day,
Sure.
there's that day, but Arbor Day would be a good one, and it would dovetail with the city's participation in Tree City USA.
Right. So there's the National Arbor Day, and then there's whatever your city declares your Arbor Day to be. You know, that's up to the mayor. But if you dovetail it the same date as the National Arbor Day, I think Oregon Arbor Week is the first week in April, and then somewhere in there you have a planting and a ceremonial kind of a day. So.
I understood
Yeah.
how we got into this. I mean,
Yeah.
Tony was commenting to us that you and he felt kind of overwhelmed on being the sole planners and implementers of the city's Arbor Day event, and basically he was trolling with whether we would be willing to get involved in some activity in association with that, and I guess that's what we're signing up to do without knowing exactly what the activity is yet.
Well, yeah, I think it's helping get the word out. There's partners like Friends of Trees who just show up with their mascots and their distribution of materials. You know, they're like, "Great, we'll come here." You know, and then the Parks Department has always just helped out with resources and staff and planting, and then using the funds for the planting and that sort of thing. I think where the NRC would be an asset would be just helping us to publicize the event, and then acting as the community liaisons for Oregon City Arbor Day. So if you guys were able to go out into, you know, where you work and let people know that it's coming, then that's good. Usually we do a one-page brochure as well. So if somebody wanted to take that on, or a one-page flyer,
Yeah.
for distribution. So formatting that I have various templates. Mhm. And then
I can do that.
then it's a matter of finding a location. I think for next year, we'll still be doing it at McLaughlin Elementary, or possibly also with the school district's help up at Holcomb.
Yeah, Holcomb's another
Yeah.
site.
But those are two right off the top of my head. There may be others. Yeah. And okay.
Who would be a lead on that one, Pete? It sounds like you're going to be involved
Well, I think
in
I'd
that
better
one,
be.
Yeah.
one way or
Yep.
another.
Yep. Definitely. Okay.
Okay, then we got 1E, partnerships with schools for natural resource education activities. And there's, how many school districts do we have here? There's the Oregon City School District, Clackamas County, or not, Clackamas Community.
Yeah,
And-
North Clackamas School District
Yeah, North Clackamas.
on this
School.
side,
Yeah,
Right.
and then Oregon City.
yeah, so that's.
And
that's-
Oregon City goes
We also have the North Clackamas Christian, which is quite a
Then you have private schools.
Yeah, then
private
there's.
good
St.
private
John's.
school. I
Yeah.
mean, if you want to include private schools, there's a
Yeah.
number of them that
And
I think
there's
could be involved.
Milwaukee, Gladstone,
There's a charter school over in Park Place, but there,
Alliance Charter Academy, and then
Yeah.
Springwater up the hill.
Right.
yeah, a little further out of town, there's one that has an environmental focus. It's,
Springwater.
yeah, Springwater.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and there's a
So there's,
gentleman that was on the committee for South End Concept Plan who was a teacher there. Adam, forget his name, last name. Anyway,
The teacher at Springwater?
yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It started with a Z, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
so Ginger, since you're in that business,
I suppose I should take the lead on that one.
You should, yes.
yes.
Your name's already
And that
printed in on my
vocation.
sheet, Ginger.
That's right.
It'll
Now,
soon be on all our
And,
sheets.
and this is the one that Jerry and I would work together because we would be, the tours would be part of this.
Well,
That we would
if
be-
the tour I'm talking about this fall is a different
No,
kind
this
of-
is different. No, for next summer,
Yeah.
next summer.
we would start, you and I would talk about what kind of tours we could set up to advertise through the schools
Oh,
to get the school kids out when they're not
Oh.
in school
okay.
Yeah,
with their families. to
With
come
With
on
the
these
families,
tours.
yeah, exactly.
During summer
During the
time,
summer.
or- Oh, okay, I didn't know
Okay.
anything about that. Okay.
What about ones in spring that would
Maybe
be
on
more for
spring
the
break.
kids?
Yeah, spring break would be
Yeah,
another good
you
time
could
to
do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're thinking of ones with the adults participating as well? Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I
And it
think
helps solve the problem of what do I do with my children during spring break when they're not in
Yeah.
school? Yes.
exactly.
Okay.
I'm hungry
Do you,
for
do you think you'd get participation because of spring break? I'm just asking. You do.
Yeah.
Because families take off. I'm just,
And a lot of them stay because
a lot
a lot of
stay.
families
Okay.
work, or one of the parents works and they
Okay.
can't take a vacation, and they like to have things to do,
Okay.
especially outdoors activities.
So this is still spring, summer 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm willing to help, but I don't quite understand what things you or think would be marketable to them. So, yeah,
Well,
that's
that's-
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that the people wanting to participate in that should get together and,
They would love a tour of Clackamas Cove, the Beaver Tour. They
Oh,
would
that's
love
an
that.
easy one to do.
They would
yeah.
love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Waterfront tour of the Willamette.
Yeah, and tree scavenger hunt,
Yeah, there's,
going
there's
down the
two
neighborhood.
overlook terraces,
Yeah.
Riverview Terrace and then
And then
River Villa Terrace, whatever.
invasive species, what you can do, an ivy
Yeah.
pulling thing.
Mhm.
You can have there are all sorts of little things. You make it a contest
Mm-hmm.
and for prizes.
That's a good one for
There's
you
all
at
sorts of.
Waterboard Park,
Yeah.
led by Brian in Waterboard Park.
well, there's not that, well, there is ivy there, but
Yeah,
other
things
than
like that. But
Yeah, but that kind of
yeah,
thing.
those
Yeah,
kind of-
okay, right.
Yeah.
If they want to learn invasives, going south from Blue Heron is a great route. It's
Yes, exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, tons of invasives there. And, but,
Good.
looking at different sites. Oh, I measured the tree of heaven at the sewer plant, 17 feet around. It's probably one of the biggest ones on Earth. And it's rotten. It's going to fall over one of these years. But
Wow.
Good cavity.
my dog loves it because there's this big rotten hole in it, and she's convinced there's something in there.
Oh, yeah.
And she she has to get up on her hind legs to stick her head in there. But every time she goes there, she barking in that hole.
I can just see it. The Oregon City Invasive Species Tour. The biggest and scariest of everything. So I-
Yeah.
Largest ivy poles. So
Okay.
Yeah, we could. We'd have to get permission from the people next door, but have the kids go in there and pull out that tree of heaven that's coming up in there before it gets much bigger. So, I also have my dogs trained to pull out invasives.
Nice. Well done.
Yeah, they'd say, "Here it is," pull on the stem and then grab on it and go, "Rah," rip it out of the ground and take off running.
Do you
With it-
folks
with it.
still in this district do in-service days in the fall, or when do you do them?
There's a couple that are before the school year starts. I think it's the last week in August here. And that's pretty much, there's one in October. The in-service days, in the past, they used to be something that teachers could choose and do different activities based on interest. But with the new accountability laws and the focus on standards, there are set things that have to be done. So all of the days that were, and there are not enough of them, but they have to be trained on new reading, new math, new materials. And so if there are days, they're eaten up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's not a way to integrate some natural resource conservation thing?
Not
Easily.
Not through,
Okay. Not easily.
But I'm sure we can find a different way
Right.
to do that. CD, ROM, DVD of things that they could do with the little video clips, and they're activities.
So, Doug, you had a comment here about this should say develop rather than consider.
So,
Yes, because I think we're saying we're going to do it, right?
Yep.
I mean, we considered it and decided it was a good idea, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think as the next set of mandates coming in, Jerry, for the teachers will be trained on, include the new science standards. They're called the Next Generation Science Standards. And as that professional development occurs, that's our opportunity
okay.
to provide local materials that help
All right.
the students meet those standards.
Next generation science.
Okay. Let's go on to our responsibility number 2, and 2A is ongoing activities. As the city addresses all projects listed under City Goal 3. And we have a statement there that we should consider recommending to the City Council any changes in codes or policies that we think might be worth their consideration. So I think this is dependent on the city having projects that.
This is one of those timing things, too. This is something where your recommendation in that regard would need to be timed just prior to the retreat of the city commission so that they can prioritize it for a budget item.
And the retreat is January?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the new
Yeah.
council people and so on.
Wait,
Correct.
aren't we confusing one thing with another here?
Oh, I don't know. Let's.
We might be.
I mean, down here on the 5th item, there's actually a specific task about
yeah, 5B,
preparing
or
priorities.
4B.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I
I
think.
mean, I think, as I understood, number 2 and number 3, number 2 addresses changes in revisions to comprehensive plans, codes, and policies, and number 4 addresses, number 3, I mean, addresses land use applications, and in both cases,
both
we're saying those are ongoing activities driven by, whatever the
whatever
city
comes up.
does in a given year.
You're correct.
Okay, you have to pretty much tell us what
Yeah, so
what your agenda is.
this is incumbent on staff to advise the NRC of those activities, of those initiations of amendments and codes and policies, and also the land use options. So,
I take it there's some decisions on our part in there on land use applications, for instance, about which ones we might engage in to provide input to you and which ones there really isn't a lot of sense in us
correct.
engaging.
And this came out of the earlier, the earlier discussion we had where, are you going to review all land use actions or only ones that are in the natural resource overlay district? And I believe the consensus with the group was only ones that were within the natural resources overlay district at this point. But,
Okay.
yeah.
Any commentary on that?
Yeah, I guess I had a little different take on it, and
Okay.
thinking back to what Shaw brought up on various things, that maybe we should be looking at some of these codes, ordinances, and so forth, and to decide whether or not there are changes that we might recommend to how they're implemented.
Yeah. I think.
And I think that's basically what number 2 is about. Initiate
Correct.
recommendations to comprehensive plan, codes, and policies.
Could I add maybe something to that? I think it's sort of like, one is learning to understand how the regulatory framework works to begin with. So various codes. And then the outcome of that, or the upshot of that, would be the initiation of recommendations and policy changes. So that, outdoor lighting code, for example, we
Yeah.
do have one. It works during development review. Similarly, this tree protection code only works during development review. So that's important to understand how those codes are implemented before we move into advising them
And I
about
think where we
changes.
got with that was
Yeah.
when we were going down that path of wanting to
Yeah.
initiate, is that while we would like to do that, we don't initiate, the city initiates.
Right.
That they have a set way that they do things, and we can talk to them about when they come up, that's the time when we do that. So it wasn't a matter of, we would initiate our response to those things, but the city actually drives the review of the codes and where
Right,
things fall.
I think I understand that part of it,
Yeah.
but I think we also have a responsibility to bring things up.
Yeah.
We might not initiate, but the actual review formally, but we can have informal reviews, and if we find something lacking, we can make a recommendation to the city that maybe this needs more evaluation, review, or whatever. And that's what I'm getting at, I guess.
But we did talk with Tony about that exact point quite a bit. And, as I understood what he said, and because I was pretty much where you are when that discussion started, Dick, that, okay, if we see that there is a problem in a city code or policy that we think needs to be reviewed or addressed, well, it's our job to bring it up, which is easy to say, but Tony, as I understood it, was pointing out to us that, well, sure, you can bring it up, but who do you bring it up to? Okay, so we put it on a piece of paper, we hand it to the planning department, but they're not tasked by the city to work on that right now, so they're not going to staff it. So you get into kind of as I understood all this, you got into kind of a circular thing where you really had to initiate some formal action first before we and you could work together
That our
on one of these
recommendation
issues.
would sit there until they dealt
Well,
with the
yeah,
issue.
otherwise it just sits there,
So,
yeah.
which would, at that point, if they were dealing with the issue, then they would have come to us, and then we would have given the recommendation. So it's kind of a
Yes.
loop.
But see,
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
somebody would go to the commission itself.
Right.
city or the planning commission and bring these up.
I remember Shaw
Well,
specifically bringing
Yeah.
up the idea of the night sky ordinance, and the
Yeah.
language already exists. I think Westland adopted part of it or all of it or something, and that it wouldn't be that difficult. And I heard the response I thought from Tony was that, well, we wouldn't initiate that because we have too many other things to do. Well,
Right.
if it's important to us as a group, that example, then we should initiate that
Yeah.
request to
Yeah.
move forward with the city council through our procedure that you identified for us. A
Yeah.
recommendation falls from us to the city council. We'd like to work on this, whatever.
Right.
Ordinance.
And
Well,
then
we-
the city commission prioritizes that as an item.
Right.
Yes.
That's why we need to.
Their every 2-year review.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what
And
that
that
takes
was
you
it.
back
So
to.
once they're in the cycle, they don't
That's
take
right.
on new
Yeah,
projects.
Once you
And they're-
open up your zoning code
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
and
public review,
We need to
you
get
need
something
to catch
together
everything. Yeah.
towards the end of this year to put things like that to the city council at their meeting in January, where they set priorities, and that's what we really need to focus on.
That's right.
We should actually be talking about that at every meeting from here on out.
And it is a lot of work to review even just one section of code. So if
Right.
it was strictly outdoor lighting, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Or-
Fortunately, there's
yeah.
model language out there
right.
that we might be able to save ourselves a lot of work with.
Yeah, definitely.
And we probably need to talk with Shaw about that. on
But I
the
think
side.
that's just an excellent point. I mean, for us to focus in on, to the degree we want to try to drive big picture policy changes within the city. That's our mechanism to get them into city priorities.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to put the timeline so that we accomplish this goal
Yeah.
of, that we do this as ongoing activity during our meetings, but the timeline is that we come up with our recommendations prior to the commission's plan.
Well, see, that's 5C.
Yeah, that's
That's task
That's
5C over on the next page.
So
that's
maybe-
yeah,
Is to
that's what
actually prepare that.
our November goal here, 3 months from now, which isn't very long, to come up with things that we would like to see, like the night sky. I think that's an excellent example.
Realistically, 2A doesn't seem to me to change much, other than,
No,
right.
it's something we need to look at,
Right.
but it needs to be timed with
Right.
our November goal here.
As far as NRC lead, it's all of us, right?
Really.
For those that want to participate. So, committee would be the lead, wouldn't it?
Many.
Well, I think this is one of those work group things, though, isn't it? I mean, if you really want to get something done, I think
Right.
you get a little
Okay.
work group of up to
Committee work
3
group.
people and have them prepare a draft for the rest of the
Does somebody
Yeah,
want to
well-
take the lead on that?
We need to look at the city ordinances that we need to look at that have to do with natural resources and see if there's any changes possible that might be something we'd want to include. And that's where the work group would come in.
Well, we know of one, I think, the night sky
Yes,
issue.
Right.
got one
And
now.
it might be, would it be appropriate to request that Shaw provide some input?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's quite
I think she
appropriate
should do it. I think she should do it.
because
so.
she's an expert on this that knows a lot about it.
Yep, I agree.
And when we talked about this before, and even the way it's written down here, we'd presumed that we would also coordinate with PrAC in that process, so
Yeah.
we and they would be on the same page to the degree possible, anyway.
Yeah, and night sky would involve planning in general too, because they'd be implementing a law, a regulation in that direction. So, looking at the time frame, actually, a work group like that would need to get going right away.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah, time's short on that one.
actually, is short. Yeah.
Yeah, because as I recall, Tony said he thought it would be best if we had something by October.
Yeah, I remember November, but, you know, both
But
of those
in
are,
that kind of time frame, yeah.
Right.
In other words, well in advance of January.
right. So that can get incorporated in their preparation.
I think that's right. You really want to set a
So-
goal like October.
So I'm going to just go ahead and ask who would be interested in participating in a work group like that.
Too bad I can't do that in this
Okay.
currently.
Okay.
Well, in terms of just reviewing what we have on the books today, I mean, obviously I can do that. It's an agenda item. If we're talking about night sky,
That's
there's only one part of our code, and that's the Site Plan and Design Review Code, and that's where that section of code is. We don't apply the outdoor lighting standards to residential subdivision review because it's kind of impossible to track enforcement of outdoor lighting once a home is sold. And unless you were using restrictive covenants to enforce your code or some other mechanism. So today what it applies to is industrial and commercial and multifamily development, but not to single family. There are ways to regulate residential lighting, you know, by having sort of either a full cutoff standard or a wattage limit, and then if somebody just or banning flood lighting into the street, and then it's strictly code enforcement basis for how that gets enforced, because staff wouldn't have the resources to drive around and enforce it. Yeah. But those codes do exist.
So is the proposal to ask Shaw, or you're going to have to talk to Shaw, or what's the plan?
I can talk to
For-
Shaw.
For the night sky issue?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. Okay, let's move on here. And responsibility to see, number 3 is to receive notice and comment on land use applications. And
I think the lead here is staff, and it's an ongoing activity as far as timeline goes.
yeah, and that's something that we need a subcommittee on, because sometimes the timeline is too short to consider it at
okay.
meetings. If something comes up just after a meeting, it could go through the comment period before the next meeting. You know, if it's 2 weeks later, it probably won't.
Yeah,
So-
someone needs to be able to respond
Yeah,
in
so,
a timely manner.
and those things all come to me, and I'd like to get a volunteer to be forwarded or put on the city's email list so that there's 2 people at least that can
Okay,
butt heads together on them. Would you be willing to do that?
great.
Okay.
Boyce and Craven are our land use notification subcommittee.
And if it does happen that a response needs to be made before the next meeting, these 2 would be making that response for the entire committee.
Right, so
If not,
That's-
they'll make a report at the next meeting.
that's either notifying the reviewing planner or someone in the planning staff that the NRC has reviewed the proposal and either has a conflict or does not have a conflict for a stated reason.
Yeah, the forms they send out, there's a
Yeah,
a small area
there's a
for
check
comment.
box
And
for that, and you can
say
attach.
yes or no, you know.
Yeah. You would also, let's see, notice. Precedes the notice is typically something called a completeness transmittal, which is usually a staff transmittal based on the code.
Mhm.
It's not the official notice, period. But it is a way to get ahead of the application and say, well, there's no topography shown on this plan set that needs to be included. So I don't have a problem including you on completeness notification, but it is extra work. So
Yeah.
that's something that we are tasked as staff to do.
Yeah, I haven't been getting those for
Right,
the neighborhood
okay.
association. And
we typically don't send those out of house.
that's,
so,
I think
yeah.
that's fine. We
Okay.
don't, you know,
All right.
just as long as everything's included when it finally gets to us.
Right. It can't be sent out for public notice until it's deemed complete. So,
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I go back and check on 2A? Do we have someone that's taken the lead on that? Which is the dark sky, that responsibility, initiate recommendations, that,
I think we need to contact
Um,
Shaw.
I will go ahead and contact Shaw myself, and
you'll be the lead then? for
I'll be the lead,
okay.
at least
All right.
for a period here.
Okay, just at least start
And
it off.
if we can generate a, you know, proposed draft fairly easily, which I think we can, then we'll just go from there. And then we can include that in our November report.
Probably mid-October I can help. I'll do it.
Okay, we get past the
So I can-
two-job thing, you mean?
Yeah. When everything's settled a little bit, and I can help with the editing and documents and things like that.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So is that you also for 3A?
Let's see, 3A. Yeah, since I would be the
Okay.
lead on that.
All right.
I'm often reviewing these for two groups because I'm chair of my neighborhood association, and I get some of the same ones
Yeah.
sometimes.
That's
Sorry about
interesting.
that.
Yeah.
They don't, well, you know, it's just the way it is, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Somebody checks that NRC and the neighborhood association needs to get it, then I get 2 copies, you know.
Ginger, just to be a nitpicker.
Good.
We aren't getting confused about this night sky thing, are we? That's would be part of what's called 5C, clear down here at the end, not 2A.
Oh,
Yeah, you're right.
okay, thank you.
2A is if, you know, if the city is revising the comprehensive plan or making a code change or a policy change, and they've asked us to review a draft or something.
Yeah.
But this, as I understand it, it's 5C is where we're going to prepare a set of natural resource priorities.
Right,
and
right.
Forward them through the planning
Right.
department to the city commission.
You're right, I did kind of merge those. Thank
Yeah.
you for helping me unravel that.
Yeah, it really falls under both. Does that mean we have to work twice as hard on it?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're not unrelated or anything, but it's a very specific task with
Right.
a deliverable.
Right.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I just want to kind of go back to what I said earlier about developing an understanding of a particular code. I mean, that's sort of something that is we would present. I mean, yeah, you have to kind of read what's on the books today and understand it. And we've done, in the past, we've looked at the Geologic Hazards Overlay Zone, I believe.
Yes.
And a long time ago, we looked at tree protection code, but I think that was so long ago that it deserves a refresher. And I'm not sure that we ever started to look at the 1749 code, which is the Natural Resources Overlay District,
Yeah,
and how that works. So they are pretty lengthy codes, and we actually have out-of-house consultants to check the land use applications for those specific items.
That's where you can help us too.
Yeah,
I mean, when
so
you
I'd be
know
I
the
would-
city's going to be looking at and potentially reviewing a certain set of codes a year out or 2 years out.
Right,
I
we
mean,
have to
somewhere
have a
there's, and we
session on
should
it,
start
a work
doing
session.
our homework and better understanding that part of city rules.
I think
Getting
that's,
ready.
yeah, those are typically like work session things, yeah. Okay, and we would have to prioritize the timing of those work sessions.
Okay, I think we've done 3 pretty well. So let's move on to 4 and conduct orderly meetings and to help with citizen participation, which is what we're all about, really. And I'd like to make a comment on agendas, that anyone can suggest agenda items. And I believe Pete sent it a notice about it out to everybody. I'd like to see that happen a week earlier,
Yeah.
but you know,
Yep.
city staff is overworked, so
But one way or
Um,
another,
we
I
can
would
write
agree
that
with
down.
that. I really think we ought to have a draft agenda that comes out, give people a few day turnaround
Yeah.
to see if there's something missing or whatever. And
yeah.
then you sort of put up or shut up, and then it's finalized, you know.
And you can yell at me 2 weeks prior to the meeting if you don't get a draft agenda. That's perfectly all right.
I'm going to put that on my tickler in the calendar. We don't have an agenda to send Pete an
And
email.
1 week before the meeting, then
Yeah.
we should be good to go.
Some kind of structure, so
Yeah,
there's a
that's the
chance
structure.
to comment and say, hey, this beep boop should have been here too.
And yeah, as Brian says, you're all welcome to suggest items.
The next meeting will be on the 10th. So that means in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
On August 27th, I'm going to send you an email.
Great. Perfect. Thank you.
That's good. That's a good thing.
I'll make it a reoccurring appointment
Yeah.
2 weeks before.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
You can include me on your tickler.
That's a good thing.
So this is actually staff and secretary.
Okay, and this also has the instructions here for getting information into the city commission for the retreat in January.
4B, though, is that's about the committee reporting back to the city commission at least once a year with a summary
We're
of our accomplishments?
Yes, we're supposed to be doing that. And,
That's what I understand 4B is, so
yeah,
we do
Yeah.
that once a year, right?
yes.
When are we doing it this year?
Well, good question. It should have happened already, but nobody's put it together yet.
Yeah, I mean, any of, let's see,
Yep.
the next city commission meeting, we can do this, and I will help you, Brian, if you want to
Okay.
prioritize this. Since it's a joint effort. What are we talking? What's today? So the 13th today. Too late for August 20th, so we should realistically shoot for September 3rd. And we would want to cover, I think we would cover everything that we've accomplished in a very brief way over the last 2 years, starting with the heritage tree designations, the street tree revisions, street tree list revisions, the heritage tree code nomination that's in draft form. Sorry, the heritage tree code revisions that are in draft form and approved by the NRC. So we'll just list them out and talk about them. And then I think we would have 15 minutes potentially to present to the city commission. And if we don't have it ready for the 3rd, we could shoot for September 17th instead.
Out of curiosity, with always looking for an opportunity to do double duty, at some
Yeah.
point here, we also have to take these proposed revisions to our bylaws to the city
That's
commission
right.
too.
It's-
Can that happen at the same time?
Ideally, it would, I think. We'd need a little extra time in order to make that happen, I think. So, yeah, I think realistically, we're looking at mid-September at the earliest. But we want to get it done before November, I believe. October would be almost too late, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Late September, mid to late September, we should try to get this done.
Okay, let's,
Yeah.
we'll shoot for September, and
Yeah.
a lot of what we're doing now, we initiated the process last year,
Right.
you know, and it's taken until now to get to where we are.
And I know we didn't want to take our proposed revisions up to the city commission until we had this activity list hammered out as
Yeah.
well. So I
Right.
explained that to Tony today, and he's like, well, try to get it done in September if you can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any more comments on number 4 here? Let's go on to our responsibility number 5, which is the coordination with other committees and on the city.
I don't know if anybody read my long-winded comments over there to the right, but I was a little confused by the text here because I thought it was sort of duplicative. I mean, there's 3 different things going on here. One of them is to coordinate with PRAC, one of them is to coordinate with the Planning Commission, and one of them is to prepare priorities for the City Commission. Rather than discussing every one of them more than once, why wouldn't it be clearer if 5A, B, and C, one of them was meeting with PRAC, one of them was meeting with the Planning Commission, and one of them was preparing the natural resource priorities?
I think those do need to be separate.
Yeah. I agree.
Because that way it's 3 specific actions if you define them that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to meet with Scott Archer next week. In fact, Tony, Scott, and I to organize the PRAC NRC meeting.
Is there some idea yet when that might be, Pete?
No.
I'm sure that'll be part of what you discuss.
But maybe we could structure it that way. Then 5A could focus on PRAC, and 5B could focus on the Planning Commission, and then 5C would be the task we've been talking about already about natural resource priorities and the City Commission retreat.
Yeah, so staff and Archer, Conkle, Walter. So that's, for PRAC, and then for Planning Commission, it's basically Conkle, Walter, and to schedule for Planning Commission, they meet the 2nd and 4th Monday.
We try to pick some time before the end of the year for each of these 2 joint meetings, whenever that might be.
Yeah. I would say I have to look at the Planning Commission schedule because we've got a lot of hearings scheduled through at least through November. But I would expect, how much time do you think we would need to discuss areas of mutual interest? Probably an hour at least.
Probably. I mean, and after all, here we're sort of feeling our way too because we haven't worked together much yet. So at least part of this is to kind of, a touchy-feely thing about how we might most effectively work together and what kinds of things, we can effectively share.
I mean, the one item that is already drafted by this body is the heritage tree code, which needs to go first to the planning commission during a legislative process and then to the city commission for final adoption. So that's one of those items that
Sure.
kind
That
of
one's straightforward.
has to wait for the code to open up, unless the city commission wants to make it, a priority on its own. And
The I did attend one meeting with PrAC earlier, and they agreed that it was a good idea, but it's not in their bylaws that they have to do it. It's in our bylaws, which, one bylaw or the other ought to get changed. But so I'm sure there'll be no problem with coming up with some sort of meeting, whether we go to one of their meetings or what, like I did earlier.
Well, and there'd be something to be said for having those meetings and discussions after we get our head around what our short list of natural resource priorities are, because that's one of the things we could discuss with them.
Yeah, and PrAC, of course, is managing natural resources, or at least providing citizen input on that. So we definitely have that overlap with them.
just so I'm clear, 5A is going to be the PrAC joint meeting?
I mean, it's kind of arbitrary which way you want to do it, but that's
Yeah.
how we were talking about it anyway.
Yeah.
5A would be PrAC, and 5B would be the Planning Commission.
Planning Commission. Okay. Timeline. Timeline for PrAC, I would say we should be try to be fairly aggressive and push for September,
Yeah,
possibly November, October, I mean. I'm going to say October.
Yeah, I think with PrAC, one of the things we need to discuss right off the bat is how do we share concerns in a time-effective manner? Should there just be some communication going on between the chairs, or how should we handle that?
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. Talk about some of those mechanisms. How would
Yeah.
they best work?
Well, do we have anything to talk to them about?
Well, just for something off the top of my head is the beaver
Absolutely.
thing that we came up with. It certainly would apply to some park lands.
Yes.
Are
We've
they,
actually already committed to discussing it with them.
You
I
know,
don't know how they feel about it, but
to me, the whole focus on this should be to develop a rapport with
Right.
them, you know?
That's exactly what I was just talking
Working
about.
relationship.
Yeah, a working
Right.
relationship, yeah. Sure. And we don't have that now. They're not required to meet with us. And we just do the minimal in meeting with them. I mean, it's kind of it was sort of one-sided, yeah. But there's no follow-up or anything.
No,
I mean,
no,
so it's just it's a mandatory meeting that occurs, and then that's it. And so, do we want it to be more than that? Do we want it to be a collaborative effort
Well,
of
yes.
some kind?
Would
But
it be helpful to recommend to the city commission that they rewrite the charter for these two groups to require that recommendations come from both?
do you want to go that far?
Well, I don't, just,
I mean,
that's just
the
an
idea
The
that
idea that
there'd be some
the city would
official
say, you both
instructions to
need
work together, I think is good.
Put your filters through each other's work before you bring them to us.
Yeah.
And whether or not we agree, it doesn't matter if we agree or disagree, but that's part of our work is coordinating.
Yeah, and
seems
that
logical to
certain,
me, yeah.
they definitely agreed in concept to that sort of idea of working together. So, but it's a matter of how do we actually set something in place to actually do that? Because that wasn't done yet.
Yeah.
We just reached an agreement that it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, when we send agendas out for the Natural Resources Committee, we include PrAC, Transportation Advisory Committee, all the CIC and neighborhood associations, and so they're notified about our meetings. But I don't know that I've received a PrAC agenda. to send you all when those come out. So that's a simple step, you know.
That would be an easy one,
Yeah.
because, you know, if they've got something on their agenda, then
Right.
at least we'd know.
Yeah.
But, you know, asking them to consult with us when they think it would be appropriate would be real helpful, and vice versa.
Likewise, that's with them. That's why I think the beaver one isn't a bad one. We told David that that was a reasonable next step, and I understood him to agree with that.
Yes, he did. Yes.
So I think that's something to bring up with them.
Right.
So the goal here is not only to schedule a joint meeting, but also to develop a rapport with
Yeah,
Pratt.
working relationship.
Or working relationship, okay.
This goes back a ways, but Richard and I were involved in the committee when Betsy Terrell was committee chair, and she and we did have a meeting with the city commission at one point, and also with the Parks and Rec committee, and it was very constructive, the Parks and Rec committee, because they didn't even know what we were working on, and so it's just getting in front of them is as good of a
Mm-hmm.
thing,
Yeah,
and discussing things with them like you did.
Yeah, well, I think that doing that again, and with the intent of working out some way of actually continuing to interact, so that
Right.
when appropriate, we are asking each other to participate. So,
Right. I think another important question would be, besides the beaver issue, several of us were concerned about the tree removal and how do they mitigate for the tree removal. I still don't know how they mitigate, or whether they are when they have to remove stuff that's hazardous or whatever it happens to be.
yeah, they do have a way of figuring that out, but
But that's a good one. I mean, there's two substantive topics
Right.
we might suggest
Right.
for future discussion. you
Yeah.
know.
yeah, another one would be invasives removal, which the city does very little of, and it's way behind every other jurisdiction in the area. And they've done almost almost nothing.
And then we had a member here from the Saltwater Conservation Service who was wondering, are there plans for management of significant parks like Clackamas or Waterboard or whatever?
Some have it and some don't, is my understanding.
Right. You mean in terms of management?
Yeah,
overall? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is there an overall management strategy that applies to everything? That'd be a good one too. Topic.
Yeah, I know that we asked Larry Potter a couple of years ago if there was one for Waterboard Park, and he said no. But I know some of the newer parks do have them, and they're making ones for new parks as they come in to city use.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean all the old ones have them.
Yeah, I mean, there's this nomenclature thing. There's this thing called a master plan, which I
Yeah.
think is primarily an infrastructure and active, this is how many swings you need to buy, blah, blah, blah. That sort of thing. I don't think that's the same thing as a management strategy for, habitat within city parks or something like that. So, yeah, we need to ask that question. John Waverly is the new Parks Maintenance Superintendent now. So
John Waverly?
John Waverly, he's been promoted. He was the interim when Larry retired. He's got two bachelor's degrees, one in horticulture and one in business. And he's been great to work with so far.
Yeah,
I think
he's basically
Yeah.
in the same position that,
Larry was in.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So he'd be a good person to get to know and perhaps invite to our meetings. Yeah.
yeah, I'd like to meet him,
Yeah.
talk with him a little bit.
Why is it important for us to know about invasive species and management plans?
Because it's a major natural resource management issue.
Okay, but what do we have to do with that?
I think it would it would benefit the city's natural resource management ability to start considering that. Because,
They're
there's,
probably going to tell you
is we don't have
I'm
time.
I'm being the devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Is that they're going to tell you that, yes, we have considered that, and that is on our list of priorities. However, our funding has run out at priority 38.
And it's for
And
39.
It's 39 or
Well,
something.
that's why in November we have to say to the city council that we need to move this up the list.
That's right. I mean, that's why when you develop this set of natural resource priorities for the next 2 years, if you think that one belongs on there,
Well,
you
this is why we need to talk
Sell
with
it.
PrAC so that they concur with that, and we say to the city
Right.
council, we both support doing this.
Yeah, and then
And that's-
it's a matter of choosing a location, finding a funding source,
yeah.
applying for a grant to match. your
exactly.
Yeah, well, the
and
great-
start pushing different ways of doing these things
Right.
through grants and volunteers,
Right.
and
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
the way you do things when you don't have money.
I think it's appropriate to find out many details on how they go about doing their work for various things, and then thinking about it a while, and then developing a plan with them if they want our help. But I think we need to be careful about getting involved in their work, you know?
Oh, I see what
sure.
you're saying. Yeah.
In other
Well,
words,
sure.
we're not here to tell them how to go about doing things.
yes, but we are here to help them set priorities.
We may be, we may not be. I'm not
Well,
totally certain.
Well,
From that point of view.
why,
I think we can certainly help.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, this is just something that I think a number of the people that are currently on the city commission would agree with, that we need, but again, it's going to be a matter, like you say, a matter of priority setting. But they need to be encouraged not to ignore it in the future to the extent that it has been ignored now.
Well, see, when you say something like that, to me, that's like throwing a hand grenade in the middle of a crowd. How do you know they're ignoring it?
Well,
You know?
they're not, maybe they're not, but they're certainly not doing it.
Well, maybe that's the priority issue.
Well, sure.
And so
Sure,
I
but
think it's
it's-
really important on how PrAC is approached on this, and,
Mm-hmm.
and not throw that hand grenade.
Well, let's not exaggerate that side of things, but, speaking out for, this is something that virtually every other public natural resource management agency is doing
Sure.
to a much greater extent than Oregon City is.
Okay, but
And
we're not in those other jurisdictions. We're in Oregon City. and
Correct.
there's, priorities, and I don't know where to go from there.
well, that's
Yeah.
And
the
so
whole
I mean,
purpose
I-
of our getting stuff to the city and by November is to change priorities.
I don't think you meant hand grenade, you meant olive branch. We're going to distribute
Olive
olive
branches,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
I mean,
branch. Part of our
No,
program.
no,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
invasive. It's a
I-
Russian olive branch.
I don't want to get into the middle of this,
But
but, a lot of the employees, they get into the city government because they want to do exactly the same thing you want to do.
yeah,
And then they get into city government, they find out how little money there is to do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
And it drives you crazy. And you
Yeah.
go, gosh,
Yeah.
everybody wants us to do something.
Right.
Well, let's find an alternative funding source
Right.
and prioritize it, and
right.
you go after it.
And
Yeah.
That's right.
something
Yeah.
that needs to be said is that the
Yeah.
Greater Oregon City Watershed Council is doing great things in this
Right.
very area. They've gotten grants. It would be easier for them if the city could do some minimal things in support of that grant, like spraying suckers from trees that have been cut down, the invasive trees.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that a lot of the corporate philanthropy and government restructuring is built around an idea called collective impact, where things are done differently, where people rethink how they do things and try to find one ways to save
Yeah.
money, but two, to work smarter.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think if we approach it as a hand grenade, we're going to get that result. But if we approach it as a collective impact,
Yes.
then I think it can be very positive.
And you have to have pilot projects too. You kind of say, well, we're going to
Yes,
concentrate
start small
here.
and
Start
then
small.
build capacity.
Have a success. Take that model, move it, use it somewhere else if it's successful.
Yeah.
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 You're right, we don't want to go in there on the offensive.
Mm.
That would not be a good approach.
But I completely agree that, there's room for learning and new opportunity on our side, for sure. So I think the time is right. Yeah.
You said both sides, didn't you?
Both sides, yeah.
On both sides, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think working with Greater Oregon City Watershed Council and any other groups like Wilderness International, for instance,
He's moving away.
who's replacing him?
Hopefully they'll still be alive.
Yeah. But anyway,
Yes.
So back to, we're on 5B.
All right.
I think,
That's good.
yeah, we're good on 5B, Planning Commission.
Excuse me.
yeah,
5C.
yeah, we got our marching orders on that one already. And the last one,
I think we need to do a little
We've-
editing on the verbiage there, but I think we've already got a pretty good understanding of what 5C is, don't we? I mean,
yeah,
it's to work together to develop a set of natural resource priorities.
yeah, which is
The city commission we'd offer up through the planning department for the city commission to consider at their January retreat.
yeah.
Yes, so January.
And Richard was going to do this? What it says on one of my... Looks like you said you were going to do it.
I think that was me that volunteered him.
Oh,
I think Brian indicated that that
okay.
he would be the lead in bringing people together on this one, and that makes sense to me.
Okay.
So your city commission meetings in October are the 1st and the 15th. There wouldn't be one on the 29th.
We don't actually take this to the city commission, do we? I mean, the focus is the new city commission, not the old one. So
Well, it would go in October.
well, it
November, excuse me.
goes in as I understood through Tony, at least, what his expectation was, and I don't think we disagree, do we? That we'd develop something in draft, we'd share it with the planning department, and if you guys had comments or wanted to help us edit it or whatever, and then it would be assembled with the other materials that other city advisory groups bring together, and it'd be part of the stuff the new commission used at their retreat to develop their set of biennial priorities.
Okay,
I mean, that's how I understood it anyway.
yeah, okay. That makes sense.
What is this actually, what's the structure of their retreats? You know, like, for example, who's the champion for each group that has stuff that needs to be pursued, or they would like to be pursued?
Well, ultimately, there's kind of a laundry list of things that go in, and city manager and all of the department heads. The city manager puts it together. The department heads each take their portion of it, and it's a 4-hour meeting or an all-day meeting, and they go through it and they winnow it down to a list of priorities with a budget priority attached to it. That's the way I understand it. And it's a fairly extensive list at the beginning, and what comes out of it is somewhat shorter.
And this is just
Yeah.
the city commission by themselves with some staff, basically.
And sometimes an outside facilitator.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's not a public meeting, in other words. It's a
Uh,
more like a retreat.
It's a retreat, right, right. And sometimes it's held here, I believe, but I'm not sure that it's open to the public. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I don't, is it? Maybe it is.
yeah. I
I've not
think,
been.
yeah, I don't think it's a public input session.
Right.
They announce where it's being
Oh,
held.
so you can
You
watch.
Watch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like
there
a
must be
work
some way to
session.
deal with the public meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So there's no public comment period.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So we've made various edits here.
Yeah.
And can we expect a final document here?
How soon could we turn this around?
Yeah, between our secretary and staff here.
I think I could have it in Friday.
Oh, well, that's
Throwing tomorrow.
Calendar.
ambitious.
I'm such a slacker.
Oh, it's almost easier to do them sooner than later, though, isn't it?
Yes.
All right.
Bathroom break here.
You want to take a quick recess, or are you good?
Yeah, we can do that unless you want to look at our bylaws or something like that.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I can do Friday.
I am at a conference on Friday.
That's okay. I mean, I can
Yeah.
do the edits and then,
Okay.
yeah,
Thanks.
send them to everyone to look at. I have to do them in the morning because I have a meeting in the afternoon.
Now that Brian's out of the room,
Yeah.
should we go ahead and make the list that we really want to do now?
There we go.
Why
There
don't you do
Let's-
that? Why don't you
let's
throw that
assign
hand
them.
grenade there, buddy?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. As I understood this list already, and Brian does, it is a part of quite a few of these. I hope he's
No, well done.
Well, that's why I
ready
was
for all the
asking-
things he accepted assignments on.
That was why I was asking that your involvement in that last one, because I think it'd be good.
I do too.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think it really would.
Try to be involved, yeah. Or I will be involved.
Well, are you the lead on it?
No, I think I'm the only
to
one
make it
last
work.
year.
No, you're the accountable one.
The
whether
accountable
you're the
one.
lead or
but
not.
Well, we're looking for accountability, that's what.
We agreed on this, right? We
I'm the
agreed
only
on
one that
this.
provided things for, the city commission last year, but it never went anywhere.
Well, there you go. That
I
makes
mean, it
your
never even got out of
experience.
our group, as far as I know.
Oh, yes.
I never even heard back from anybody on it,
No, you didn't. That's
so.
Well, it's like some of these joint meetings and things. We just have to be more tenacious to be sure all these things happen, I guess.
I guess, I don't know.
It's just too easy to let them slip by.
Yeah.
Did I hear him say, or chair say something about our bylaws? It's not on the agenda.
Oh, I just
No.
included a copy of the.
Maybe he
case-
was just
in case we
asking the
wanted to
question,
further.
but as far as I know, we're there on the
Yeah.
bylaws, aren't
We're
we?
the
We-
bylaws.
We
They're done.
formally voted on them
Yeah,
once.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know what he was doing.
I think it was just there for reference, in case you wanted to look
Okay,
at
good.
it.
I was hoping.
And I think the next big question with the bylaws, the one we brought up a little while ago, what's the process from here to get into the city commission?
Yeah, well, once we get this, I think we partner this with this, and Brian would have it as part of his materials to present.
Yeah, that'd be ideal, I think, if it was all at the same meeting.
Yeah. At the
An
next.
annual progress report or biennial
Right.
progress report or whatever, and the bylaws revisions.
Yeah, I mean, sort of like, this is something that we've been working on. We can talk
Well, yeah,
about
because it's a major thing we've done this year, after all.
Yeah, it is. This is huge.
I guess I'd like to ask a question on the CD director draft NRC goals. Now,
Yeah.
that goes away, I assume,
Yeah,
yeah, right?
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
okay.
Well, you might think about something. You're talking about this? Is that what you're talking
No,
about,
the-
Dick?
The agenda item,
These were support documents that he has as attachments for us.
Well, that is this, isn't it?
no.
That's why I was asking. Are we talking about, are you talking about that?
What is that?
I can't see it. Oh, yeah, that, excuse me.
Oh, I
Yeah.
never saw those.
Yeah, I mean, that was that other thing that was actually, Tony and Pete developed that out of our first discussion.
Right,
and-
right, right, I remember.
And that kind of came out of, as I remember, Tony's idea that we might want to share with the city council in our update with them, kind of the highlights of what our work plan is or our tasks over the next year or two. But he thought that you guys thought that this matrix that we're using was too complicated to share with them.
Well,
It got a lot simpler.
I think it's much simpler now, and I think it ties well back to the city
Yes.
commission goals. So I don't have any problem with the format that we're.
Maybe we could just with them, I mean, whap off the notes and schedules and other stuff and just show them this part of it, and maybe
Yeah, you could. You could even do that.
maybe
Yeah.
that would work.
Yeah. Of course, then you get the question, so what's your timeline and who's responsible?
Well, yeah, I suppose you're going to show the whole thing.
So,
What was this for then?
that was from Carol
Carol
Kemmis.
brought that to us.
I just thought it was a good resource, of what a SMART goal is.
Oh, okay.
As
opposed to a dumb goal.
opposed
That's
to
yeah, it's compared to the
a not
usual dumb
smart
goal.
goal.
Yeah.
a SMART goal is specific, is
Measurable.
measurable, attainable, relevant, and
And timely.
timely.
Yeah.
It's something they do in California, evidently.
Education, we borrowed from business. You know.
Yeah.
It's,
So
it's nice
I
though.
just
It helps
threw it
you.
into the mix.
Helps you
Yeah.
focus.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see, we already covered the fall foliage tour.
Yeah, I
And,
devoted some 15 minutes to that, so I think we're good, though, Jerry, if you and I
Well,
would
we'll
just
have to
collaborate.
bring something more
Yeah.
formal to you
Yeah.
for September. I really feel like we need to structure this around one vehicle. I'm just telling you,
Okay.
trying to
Yeah.
do two vehicles.
Well, it's cheaper.
Right.
How much cheaper?
Well,
Two minivans with the
if
same
you get
amount
senior
of-
vans, that'd be different. But,
Yeah.
you know,
How much
I
are we
don't-
talking about, dollar-wise?
well, the last one was $481
$481
for
bucks. Yeah.
6 contact hours.
Right,
in
but
the
I mean,
field.
the difference between 2 and 1 vans.
That was not a van, it was a bus.
Okay, but
I think you're paying the drivers, so it would probably be doubling that. So, yeah, I would be conservative and say it's going to be about 800 or 900 if you get two vans. Yeah.
but you're saying one van, right?
Well, no,
Well,
I
one
think
one
we
long,
chartered a
bus.
full bus.
one long bus.
Okay, I guess what I'm
Yeah.
asking
Yeah.
is, if you have the bus, how much is it compared to having the two vans?
I don't know about vans. I've never done
I
vans.
don't have an estimate on that.
You know,
Oh.
vans
Yeah.
I've done before
Mm-hmm.
are unacceptable because they don't have a restroom on board. A bunch of things that they
Yeah.
just don't have.
I think you
but-
need the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
we'll just make sure
much more
we-
convenient.
We've done it once, so we
Right.
can certainly do it again.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think there is a commitment to pay for the bus again? That's an
Yes.
important question.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I've established
All right.
that.
And then do you think there's a commitment to get me reimbursed? You know, it's the 4th time I've turned a reimbursement in for the last year's thing. It seems to go nowhere. Just a bunch of printing I had to do, but
The reimbursement?
oh, there's a whole bunch of printing I had to do for about 40 people of packets that
Yeah.
we passed out. You know, so.
So
Okay.
there is.
But I understood that you're going to sponsor this tour, so I won't have to worry about this year.
There is
Craven
reimbursement.
Consulting.
Yeah, Craven Consulting is out of business.
Well, I
think
will
the
work
story
on
is
that.
The principal retired,
The
something like that?
principal retired 8 years ago.
All right.
Okay, do we have any staff communications?
You'd asked for an update on the boat ramp.
Thank you.
And let me look here. I did get I emailed Scott Archer and Denise Kai about it, and I've got a short email from Scott. So the ramp remains closed while they're exploring solutions and will remain closed until further notice. They have received a grant from the Marine Board. I believe it was in the amount of about $85,000 to perform a hydrologic study in the river area of the ramp, to help examine and determine our options, which may include rebuild or renovation in place, relocation of the ramp to a different location, or some other unknown option. The timeline of these remedies is dependent upon funding, so it's strictly a study, money for a study at this point, and not for actual construction of anything.
What the hydrologic study is for exactly.
Well, it's just to look at the force of the water and how it hits that ramp, and if there are ways to reorient it, I believe, and so that it becomes less of a impediment.
Redesign the
Yeah.
ramp somehow.
possibly slant it somehow or relocate it somehow. So as more work continues on that, I'd be happy to provide an update. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very much bigger structure, of course, but you look at the 42nd Street boat ramp in Portland on the Columbia and how they deal with a similar problem. And, of course, they do it with a big honking breakwater
Right.
upstream to protect the ramp.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which the Columbia is big enough that
That's
you
right.
can get away with that, you know. But
You don't have the amount of room to work with there to do
yeah,
the same
and
thing.
it's going to be pushing it right into what is going to be rehabilitated land by the time this gets done.
Well, yeah, the gravel bar over there is quickly vegetating.
Yeah.
Well, and the other issue is that the area below the bridge, 99E Bridge, the approaching bar from Doll Beach is now approaching the Oregon City Bank, and it appears it's also growing rapidly above the boat ramp because the boat ramp riprap that was put in this winter is now acting as a containment.
Oh, no.
So the channel that was
Yeah.
there
But you
is
just love
rapidly
water.
going away.
Don't you love water? It's
Huh?
just so
Yeah,
fluid dynamics. They're just
it is. It is.
Doesn't wait around for us.
nope. Nope.
Right.
You just think you can plan water.
Do you sense, I don't know, from Scott's thinking or anybody's thinking with the parks that they do want to continue that ramp there?
I got no
You
impression.
don't have any
You know,
impression?
that's as much as I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
They definitely need to figure out if it's possible to have that, you know,
Right.
because there's going to be another low Willamette, high Clackamas event if sooner or later that's going to hit it, you know, and you can't just put it back the way it was.
Yeah.
So they got to figure out, you know, what's viable. You know, because that location is not, you know, because of the tidal changes, it's a really odd location.
It is.
And got it this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So what else is going on? Sanitary sewer moratorium declaration by the city commission for certain areas of the city, primarily areas that are flow constricted, existing areas of the city, and Hazel Grove and other areas. So that moratorium is a 6-month moratorium and could be extended. It affects the new development within those areas, whether you're putting on a new toilet under your house or building a new house or new development will be curtailed until there's a fix in place. They're working very quickly to identify fixes so that we don't slow down people's ability to redevelop or add on to their home. It's a big concern, and it's the last thing anybody wanted was to declare a moratorium, but it's a public safety issue.
What are the areas?
There's a basin map on the website that shows the areas that are affected, and so it's 12 areas within 3 basins. And within each of those, they've identified areas that have the greatest capability of redevelopment if there were no moratorium. So those are the areas that are the most affected. And it's done based on flow modeling, what they've noticed. And I'm a non-engineer, so bear with me.
Sure.
Surcharging is the term they use when the pipe has reached its capacity during a wet weather event. And the sewer flow will come up to that manhole, and in some cases push the manhole up under a certain event. And this has actually happened in a couple of times. And you don't want that. So the fix, and some of it is not due to development pressure. It's due to what's called I&I, which means inflow and infiltration due to leaky pipes. So where there's a wet groundwater condition going in, and they need to identify where those I&I areas are and see what the fix is. So it's complicated, and they're working quickly.
And this is all on the upper town, on the flats above
Rivercrest, Hazel Grove, parts of Lynn Avenue, Warner Parrott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons they're nearing capacity is that those areas are fairly well developed already.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
places available for new developments, but they're limited.
Mm-hmm.
But those are all stopped with this moratorium, any new development at all that adds a sewer.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Now, somebody could propose a fix, but it was going to have to meet a public works standard in order to be acceptable
Yeah.
To the city, since it can't just be, well, I'm going to fix it from my particular situation and not worry about
Move it
everything
down the
else
road,
around
the
it.
pipe.
Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, but if there's a restricted flow spot downstream from that, it's not going to
Yeah.
help.
This is a big picture
It'll just
thing.
get it to the
Mhm.
constriction quicker,
Yeah. So that was a city commission item.
Yeah.
And then, what else have I got going on? The Natural Resources Overlay District application from Metro for the improvements at Kenema Bluff. We did get comments from the Kenema Neighborhood Association, primarily on the existing parking situation at Kenema Park, and concerns about what would happen with induced demand for the open space and that sort of thing. So we're working with Metro to try to identify solutions for parking at the entrance. We don't expect that the improvements themselves will attract more visitors there, since they're primarily doing is trying to improve the trails situation and reduce the impact on the wetlands that are there. And then you've got the overlook improvement, which is primarily there to be a safety improvement so that people can get up to the edge of the bluff and have a barrier while taking in the view. So we'll be putting out a staff report for that in September, with the engineering studies for the bluff itself, because the barrier is going to require some drilling into the rock at the edge of the cliff. So that's that.
You
We
say
don't.
barrier, that sounds like a fence. Like
It's,
4 feet high or something.
It's
Chain link
sort of a natural material. It's not a chain link fence. It's a low fence that's in keeping with the surrounding environment.
Yeah.
It has almost not a split rail, but it's kind of like the promontory fence with cement. It's
Oh,
not,
yeah.
but I think it'll be more natural than that. Yeah, with
Yeah.
stacked dry stone piers between the railings. Yeah. Yep. We don't have any other natural resource overlay district applications at this time. Blue Heron tours are going three or four a week now, I think, with different groups. So,
The news has gotten out.
right, yeah. And they're having to divvy those up between Tony and Christina and Kelly so that they don't burn out. But if you know people who are interested, we still want to keep the champion process moving ahead and the master plan process moving ahead. The hearing dates are set coming up here. There'll be 3 public hearings, I believe, at the Planning Commission. And I don't have the dates, but they'll be going out soon.
How is the owner responding at this point?
He's signed the land use application, which is good.
What does that mean?
It means that he, as the owner of the site, he consents to the master planning process, and is on board with the ideas embodied within the master plan draft.
Right away from the
Right.
city.
Yeah, which means having public access to the falls as an asset.
That was a big deal for him to sign off on
That was a very big deal, especially with all the partners agreeing on those 4 principles as well. So that, and clearly he has, his own ideas of how a site like that should develop. But public access to the falls is part and parcel of what they want to see out there.
Has he
Yeah.
made any clear statements about how he's looking at developing?
Well, I think you might have seen the article where he talked about possibly using a hotel, doing a hotel out there, mixed use ideas. Yeah, but I haven't heard anything more concrete than that at this point. Yeah. Okay.
And regarding that, is the county still a partner, or they kind of pulled out, didn't they?
I don't know. I don't know where
Metro's still a partner.
Metro's definitely still a partner.
Is
Yeah.
State Park still involved? I thought
I
they were
believe so.
kind of-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they had that large grant that needs to be spent here
Yeah.
before long.
Mm-hmm.
Is that State Parks or
Yeah.
the $5 million from the state?
Right.
There's two different things
For well, you've got the public promontory idea, which would hopefully move forward with state park funding, and I don't want to speak out of line because I'm not involved in this project directly, so I believe so, but definitely want to check with Christina and Kelly on the latest on that. It should be on the website. Yeah.
Good.
What else is going on? That's it for unless you have any questions for me, I can try to answer.
Okay, any
those.
more questions?
Nope.
Okay. Then we'd go on to NRC member reports. And we'll start out with you. Ladies first.
All right, well, the only thing I've got is to make sure everyone on the panel knows I accepted a position in the Oregon Trail School District as a director for a K-8, it's going to be K-12 International Baccalaureate School that has a Mandarin immersion program and Project Lead the Way engineering. So it's quite a nice school. It's a public school. It's part of the school district. And it's got more kids interested in attending than there's room, so we have a waiting list of kids that want to get in. I miss Oregon City School District already has these wonderful programs here, and now I get to build another one, so I'm really excited about that. But since my position on the council is the person that lives outside the city but is connected to the city, I will still retain my work on the board. So, this committee, I'm very interested in this, so I will maintain those commitments, and I have the relationships still in the city to forward the work here. So I'm committed to do that.
Good.
Where's the school located?
It's located at the old Cottrell Middle School, which is on the border of Sandy and Boring,
Oh, okay.
off of Bluff Road.
Yeah.
So speaking of bluffs, I mean, you drive around Bluff Road to this beautiful location. Lots of property. It's very nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
Okay.
The Greater Oregon City Watershed Committee has been pursuing a scattering canyon project at the Mountain View Cemetery.
Cemetery. Yeah.
The scattering canyon, I guess, needs no explanation probably, but there's a drainage that goes down through it, and it's a lot of erosion and so forth, a lot of surface runoff, acres of surface runoff from city streets and so forth. So the idea is to, from the engineer, is to construct a rain garden type situation there.
What, at the top, or?
Yeah, right in the cemetery, right in the, basically, I guess you'd call it the, where the pipe comes out of the ground. And this pipe is from, like I said, from, I don't know, I can't remember how many acres he told me. But I think it's 100 acres or so, of surface runoff, not only from the cemetery, but outside the cemetery, city streets and so forth.
City streets, roofs, and so on.
Yeah.
Even one of the city maintenance yards, as I recall.
Yeah, and so basically, I guess we're trying to pursue that, and I volunteered to do the permitting on it. But first, we have to have a footprint, of what this looks like, so that I can think about how to deal with permits. And of course, I'm going to call on a couple people here, Brian and Jerry, to do some plan identification out there. But anyway, that's, being pursued and looking for funding. We think we have some funding sources on that. Rita Baker is carrying that forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell us about the grant they just acquired, or the approval to move forward with Metro. What was that going to be focused on?
I'm not exactly sure. You're talking about Newell Canyon, or
It was a Metro Nature of the Neighborhoods grant.
it was
that-
probably,
Yeah, that was invasives removal, basically. Yeah, and I forget the names of which parks. They did not include Waterboard because they think that's might be better on a separate grant because it's a huge project. There's
yeah.
18, 19 acres of ivy, basically, plus invasive trees.
I think Kanema is part of that also.
Um,
Kanema and
I
Newell
think so.
Canyon, and maybe something else.
Yeah, I don't know if Kanema's in it because that's Metro property, and
Yeah.
Metro doesn't give grants for their own property.
Okay.
No.
I
I didn't see the
I think
final
there's-
application. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
don't.
sure.
I don't think it was Kanema.
Yeah.
There might be a little bit at the children's park. I'm not sure though.
Hmm.
But that's the sort of thing that they've got grant funding to remove invasives, and then the city is supporting it, of course. But it's really good that they're getting that funding, and something that I think we should be encouraging them to move ahead with in the future.
Good.
One other thing I'd like to mention is, it seems like there are a lot of separate efforts,
Sure.
different organizations.
Bet there.
And it seems like there could be a hell of a synergistic effort by somehow getting people together, And when I say people, I'm talking about CCC, the Watershed Committee, and other organizations to maybe work closer together somehow. City of Oregon City, et cetera. And it seems like there needs to be a funding source of a few $1,000s from some of these organizations to form this group, and just see where it goes. I think, from the environmental end of things, I think that individually groups don't do well, And it seems like with Oregon City, you've got the Greater Oregon City Watershed Committee, you've got CCC, and you've got other entities that could be somehow put together in some kind of a consortium, a group, to focus on environmental things. And I don't know how to make that happen. And I don't know if anybody has any interest in making it happen.
Well, it's happening at least to a limited extent when grants are developed, because it's one of the things grantors want to see now is more than one group signing on to this grant and putting anything in kind or whatever, in support, so that the granting body, which is often Metro, isn't the sole source of money. They want to see,
Yeah, they require it.
the city put in a little, various other groups put in some time and money to, so that the goal's bigger, really.
Yeah.
That's one of the main reasons.
They also
What?
want to see that the money's doing the most good in the
Yeah.
community that needs
And-
it. So
And that's
Yeah.
also
See that-
showing community support.
Yeah, but
Right.
see, that's done on an individual grant basis.
Right.
And
Sure.
there's not an overall
Right.
overarching organization. And it seems to me that there needs to be something like that.
Let me
And-
describe to you the Clackamas Heritage Partners, who was an effort to bring the End of the Oregon Trail together with the Museum of the Oregon Territory 8 years ago, 10 years ago. And one operates the End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center, one operates the Museum of the Oregon Territory, owned by the Clackamas County Historical Society, which has a broad membership. The marriage was forced for those two groups to come together. You won't get any more grants from the Tourism Agency of Clackamas County. It did not work. What did happen was another group came out of it called the the Willamette Falls Heritage Coalition, which is above and beyond all, they think. And then we have the Willamette Falls Heritage Foundation, which is working on the Westland side and other things related to the locks.
yeah,
And so I'm just giving you the perspective from tourism. I work a lot on tourism things. There's all this effort to advance a person's territory because of who they are. And then you get in the competitive grant process, they're not submitting together, they're individually competing for the resource. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, it's wrong. And the tourism thing at Oregon City is wrong. What's going on right now is wrong. You've got too many entities competing for limited monies and attention. And the 5 I just described to you are all competing for awareness and focus on the city of Oregon City or Willamette Falls. And nobody can tell who's doing what. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, a good grant idea,
That's
maybe
the vision.
for you to submit as an idea independently, is to see if there's an effort to bring people together to work for a common good.
I think
I
that's
don't
a
know.
great idea, and I think that the new administrator at the Oregon Trail School.
I think she would she have time.
Well, I think of, this, Jerry's wearing a Solve T-shirt,
Yeah,
Solve?
Yeah, I mean,
That's what
Jerry's
I
wearing a
said.
Solve T-shirt. I mean, Solve is one of those groups that is able to say, well, we got all these volunteers out there
Yeah.
on a particular day.
Right.
They go to a website. They say, "Oh, I live here. I wouldn't mind going over there and doing something," and
Right.
that's kind of, they facilitate that. But that's a unique situation.
Yeah.
They mobilize
Yeah.
volunteers
Mobilize,
statewide.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
haven't, they do compete against a lot of other organizations for money and attention,
Yeah.
but they haven't let it get in the way of the
Right.
big issue of mobilizing
Right.
people
Yeah,
throughout Oregon.
Yeah.
But,
Clackamas River Basin Council
And you guys-
includes them as a partner on grants,
Right.
and it's not a conflict at all.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, it's
Right.
more an attitude thing than, than a legalistic thing. But you do have to be separate organizations supporting a single grant, and the grant
Right.
could be from anybody in the group.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as there's some sharing of the responsibility and financing of the thing, so that it makes the grants much more likely to be granted.
Yeah. I mean, part of me feels like our diversity there is good. The diversity is our strength because
Yeah.
there's so many varied interests. But if all of that volunteer enthusiasm were diluted for a lack of resources on where to go and what to do, then we'd have a problem. I think maybe what our role as the NRC could be for the short term is to try to focus, as we are, on producing some of these informational things, through the website and stuff, so that those existing groups are linked to us through the city website. That would be a good thing.
Yeah, the Clackamas River Basin Council is doing a major project at the confluence of the Clackamas and Willamette in Gladstone, and they've
Yeah.
gotten together with the mayor of Oregon City and are looking at doing the same on the Clackamas side, including along the Willamette, doing real restoration there, which it could really benefit from. And exactly how that will, how and when that will take place, it's going to be at least a year off before anything happens, maybe longer. But that's the sort of thing where you get various groups together. The city puts in some, and Metro puts in a lot, and so on. And other agencies are interested as well. And there's some major state granting that will apply only to that part of the world. And not further up the Clackamas, so there's definite, bringing different groups together is just wonderful. It's just the way you need to do it. So, anyway.
Well, let me describe, you got on your things there, this is a tour that is focusing on natural history, and it's the attempt to bring the Portland spirit to Oregon City and build rapport, to have them be here, not just pass by. This is the vessel that's going to be used. The bus company's on your left, since Richard was asking about buses. That's the company we used last fall, Pete and all of us, Blue Star. And the itinerary is kind of on the back. This thing starts out in Portland by OMSI at Carruthers Landing and moves 15 miles south to Willamette Falls and Oregon City, and then includes the Museum of the Oregon Territory and the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center, and is designed, the first one on October 14th, to let event planners and the general public, a VIP, anybody who wants to be a VIP, it's the same price this fall as it'll be next summer, to be a VIP and be with event planners. But we're planning to do 10 of these in 2015. And each time this happens, up to 200 people will deliver $1,000 to each museum. That's how it's designed. And the ticket price, which is something I really felt was important. This is something I worked on, and Brian helped me with this too. But the Clackamas County Tourism and Cultural Affairs Division, this grant idea went to them last fall, and they said, well, why would you include buses? Well, because we have to do an ashore component. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. We need the vessel part. We need to see the downtown redevelopment, look at Blue Heron, look at the museums, and include old home tours of the hilltop, which haven't been done for 20 years now. Used to be 20 years ago, you might remember there was old home tours in Oregon City. We're going to include that again for the first time. And a complete narrative line with professional narrators mentoring and assisted by youth. 2 youth at a time will be on each bus, and I'm training those youth right now to know the storyline between Carruthers Landing and everything in Oregon City and back. So I thought you'd want to know about this, but the natural history component is going to be very strong. Portland Spirits part is they go to 4 different trade shows, 1 in Canada, 1 in Nevada, 1 in Chicago, and 1 in New York City to market their new product. This will be their new product for 2015. So it's a real chance to expose Oregon City on a much different level. And so I'm feeling pretty good about the opportunity here. It was funded by the Oregon City Civic Improvement Trust. After the county said, why would you include buses? I got a little upset, and I went to Civic Improvement Trust with the same concept. And they said, well, of course. And then the county came back to me and said, why didn't you include us? I said, because you didn't think that buses would work. Now they want to be included. So we're happy that they're included.
Why didn't they want the buses?
They didn't think buses would be a way to bring people on tours. And my comeback to that was, how do you think people get to Portland? They either fly in, or they come on chartered or special events out of who knows where, Nevada, Canada, whatever. That's how they come into these destination areas like Portland or wherever, Medford or something.
Yeah.
So I think we have a good coalition going together now on the whole thing. So you'll see the first kickoff of this October the 14th.
Cool. Congrats.
Okay.
You are so good at this.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoy this, but
You really are.
What are you going to be? What are you're going to be?
Years, actually.
What are you going to wear?
what are we going to wear? Every primary guide will be in period dress. This will be a primary guide. I want to make him look like John McLaughlin's understudy.
Not gonna work.
And then the youth will have beautiful T-shirts that say Rivers of Life Centers Tours, and a very formal-looking attire that they'll wear. So they contrast. They look like that's the point of contact to get on the bus, time to get back on the bus, whatever. And the whole thing is it's going to sample the downtown, all the museums, and give people a chance to sample basically the lower district and the mid-district, the so-called McLaughlin district.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway. And the prices, I want to point out to you, it's $98 per person. Sounds a little expensive, but the stuff they're doing up the gorge right now, which is not any more contact time on the water, is 105 now. We're trying to keep this below 100, was our hope. So, anyway. And includes, by the way, fine chef-served lunches for all the parties. Those on the bus and those on the boat will switch. And the people on the vessel will have been served by an executive chef with Willamette Valley Foods and other things. They're actually getting steelhead from up near McNary Dam that are sustainably raised. Don't ask me how they're doing this. That's what they're wanting to do, to showcase farmed steelhead from the Columbia River.
Hopefully that's not too close to McNary Dam, since it's against Oregon law.
Is that right? Okay.
Pull it out of the sea lion's mouth. Give me that.
Okay, if anyone is interested in a good shorter hike, I'm leading a 3-mile hike. That's a car shuttle, so there's a lot more downhill than uphill. Up in the Oregon Cascades on the former route of the Pacific Crest Trail on Rhododendron Ridge. We'll drive up to 5,000 feet, and there's a 5,300-foot peak that comes up real quick, and then it's all downhill from there. The Oregon skyrocket should be blooming down the trail, which is one of the showier plants we have around here.
This is Saturday, right?
this Saturday.
He does a really good job on these tours.
Yeah, and it's an interesting geologic area. We'll be able to see right into the Bull of the Woods fires that happened 2 years in a row, and see the burned areas from that mountaintop and various spots along the trail. And I've already got 10 people signed up to go. And if you're interested, clackamasriver.org, there's a sheet to fill out, that the lawyer makes us do, saying if I run you off a cliff, it's your fault. That sort of thing.
Don't laugh like that.
Yeah, I know. I only have 10. I need more.
We've only got room for 9 in the car.
Anyway, so we're meeting at 8:30 down at Oregon City Shopping Center, and we'll go from there. Or no, let's see, that was an earlier one. We're meeting at the, told you wrong, meeting at the ranger station out there towards Estacada,
All right.
8:30 in the morning.
Right in
Okay.
Estacada?
Well, no, it's before you get to Estacada, on the right side of the road.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the only ranger station you'll come to.
Oh,
So,
Did you want to talk about the thank you to Carol Chemis?
oh yeah, we were.
Carol Chemis.
Yes, we should write her at least a short letter.
Yes, we
Okay.
should. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then we could.
would you be willing to draft such a letter?
I would be happy to do
Because I
that.
think she
Okay.
deserves
Yes.
recognition for her help.
Her contribution,
Yeah.
getting us
That'd be
started on this
wonderful.
process.
Yeah, if you like, we could run it up the flagpole with
Have the mayor
Doug,
sign it.
Doug Neely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be kind
Mayor-
of
mayor
I'll,
should
Yeah.
sign
I'll
it.
draft some language and send it to you. And you can, okay.
okay. That sounds great.
Hmm.
Yeah, good, thank you.
You can add the whereas and the where therefores and
Wherefore,
the, yeah.
and now I.
Right, yeah.
I think she deserves a key to the city.
Or at least a
Hand
free,
out a lot of keys
you
at
to
least
the
a
heard
free
about her
tour.
You heard about her brother Brad Smith's
Well, I know Brad, but
induction into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame for his long-term success and leadership in basketball, women's basketball, and
Oh, wow.
and here locally and nationally, and
Yeah.
he's just done so
Interesting.
much for this community and through sports, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
and Carl Tinsley has also done amazing things as well. And part of that is that the tourism piece and why we needed a hotel is because they have this huge basketball tournament
Yep.
that everyone has to stay in Lake Oswego or Clackamas
Right.
because we've only got one hotel, and
Right,
we could
right.
be we could be promoting our own city here
Absolutely.
more if
The
we
moment
had.
you see the falls, you'd
Yeah.
be like, whew.
Yeah, the falls and
Yeah. Mm.
the restaurants and the things to see when you're not playing basketball. There's a lot of historical sites to visit, and I don't
Mhm.
Yep.
yeah. Anyway, but so yes, so congratulations to her
Oh.
brother Brad as well. And
Okay.
yeah,
Great.
good family.
Good
Yeah.
deal. Thank you.
Okay. Anything from?
Oh, maybe one little quick one. If you remember at our last meeting, that discussion with Bob LaSalle about preparing a little article on lamprey in this area, and I think you all saw the article that Catherine pulled together. And I don't remember if the photographs or whether or not, but she assembled some photographs and the like too. It turned out that was not printed in the Trail Talk because I guess there wasn't enough room. But I believe that the Watershed Council is going to distribute it in their newsletter instead. So I think it's going to
Okay.
be distributed that way.
So nothing got into the trail news about that?
No.
Oh. Okay.
She was kind of discouraged about that, and she turned
Well,
the thing
I
around
was-
overnight.
I didn't know if it was an all or nothing thing, but it sounds like it was. Huh.
But anyway, it was done, and it's
Yeah.
going to be
Wow.
used and publicly distributed just by
Right.
a different venue.
I think I zoned out there. Why didn't it get in?
They said there wasn't enough room.
Yeah, and she didn't want it to be diluted through editing, so fair enough.
And
Yeah.
who did this article? You did?
Catherine.
Yeah.
Your wife?
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, I get it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
some great
All right.
pictures. So,
Oh, yes, wonderful photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and great,
So when we gonna
great
see it?
narrative
I'd like
as
to see
well.
it.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess it's going to be distributed in the next newsletter of the Watershed Council, though if you want a copy of it with
Yeah.
photos, I can just send you
Absolutely.
one by email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Wow.
Yeah.
Neat. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Future agenda items.
Right. We've generated some already, I think. And we need to start going on all our November deadline here and everything related with that.
We have adoption of the activities.
Yep.
Yep.
We have tentative schedule for fall foliage tour.
Right. Don't we have to forward our bylaws and this work plan to the city commission for their review?
Yeah. Yeah, forward. Yeah,
And in the case of bylaws, don't they approve our bylaws?
correct. Yeah. I don't think they have to approve the activities, but they do have to
Yeah.
approve the bylaws.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to see if it'd be possible to have Randy or Ed, the developers of the Cove, come in and give us a little update on their process of
Okay.
how they're going to approach the project. It sounds like the project may move forward now, first
Okay.
phase.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
No, I hadn't heard
Just
that,
heard that
but
last day or two. I mean,
if that's good. We
But
can
I'd like
invite
to know,
them.
does that mean that they're going to go in to you for what? What do they
Okay.
have to do to comply with your requirements now? Or I had to
Come in
go
for a site plan design review application.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about the Bluff project?
No, the
Cove,
cove.
Blackwood Cove.
Oh, the
Yeah.
Cove, okay, all right.
Right. Right. So.
You know, we've always been supportive of them, and I just kind of like to hear from them.
Yeah. Invite those guys for presentation.
I'd be glad to invite them. I talk to them often, but if you want to do it from your office, that's fine.
Yeah, either or.
Okay.
If it's going to be on our September meeting,
October
then
or something, whatever.
potentially September, October. Okay. Yeah. So.
Review minutes.
Review minutes. Yes. Should have a couple of sets by the time that rolls around. Anything else? Update on the Clackamas Park boat ramp.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, if there's any news developed.
We may have a couple of applications, interviews for the new positions too, if we can schedule that. We may have to schedule the meeting a little bit earlier in order to do that. So if Colleen and this other gentleman, Mike, do submit applications. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a full agenda. Well, I don't want to commit Mike because I haven't seen an application yet. So, a gentleman who emailed me is retired from the Colorado Division of Wildlife and Fish Biology and other wildlife biology field, and he expressed an interest to me informally, and then I directed him to city recorder for the standardized process. So, he lives in unincorporated area just off of South End Road. He was looking in the Kanema district, but for a place to live. Just retired, and it turns out that we have a mutual friend who I went to school with at Colorado State, Mike Sherman. He's a wildlife biologist there. He's like, yeah, I taught that guy everything he knows. So,
Uh-oh.
yeah, he was joking. But yeah, he's a colorful character, and I hope he does apply. Mhm.
Who's the other one?
Oh, sorry.
Colleen
Colleen.
Weiss, she originally applied, but then decided
Oh,
because we had so
with
many
you.
people that she'd withdraw her application. She's a parent she has children that attend Jennings Lodge, lives in this area here, and she's got a science background, and this is right up her alley. So
Yeah, I hope she goes for it. All right.
she's like that one. She's a biologist too, but I'm
Colleen
not
Weiss.
sure what her specialty is, environmental biology or something like that.
So now they have to apply,
Mhm.
now that we've talked
Yeah.
about them, so.
Why don't we form an environmental consulting firm?
It's pretty
There you go.
impressive, it
You
really
know,
is.
we-
yeah.
It's getting there.
It's not a bad idea. You guys have to,
To heck with this.
The problem is, every time we went to the office, we'd have to have it recorded publicly. Okay, any other agenda items? If not, I'm going to declare the meeting over.
Hey.
Thank you.
9:30 on the
Wow.
dot.
Good deal. That was really good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.